we are up to EI session 8, and we're now talking about emotional martial arts stage 3, which is the sparring stage. Now, stage 3 is about interacting with others and being very emotionally present, not fused with our emotions, not numbed out to the emotions, but present with them, able to express them, able to feel them, and able to discern what's mine, what's theirs, and feedback that's coming through. And just like I've said before, it's kind of like sight. We're trying to right size the emotion so that it's like you think about sight. If something is too close to our face, it's difficult to see. So that would be like what I would call fusion with the emotion. When something is too far away, we also can't really see it because it's like, you know, an object that's far out in the distance and I can't really make out what is there. So we have to bring it into a range where we're able to tap into it and to work with it. So this whole section leads into a depth of what I call relational artistry. So in a very unskilled practitioner, it's just, let's say, a lot of inner child wounding, a lot of fusion with an emotion, and just blah 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 blah, like a lot of projectiles coming outwardly in conflict. Okay, so when I talk about sparring, I mean conflict or debate, because we're not actually physically fighting here. What we're doing is we're sharing words, but the words are coming out with a lot of heat, right? We might be very fiery as we're sharing these words. So a stage 3 expert is someone who is able to skillfully navigate conflict, skillfully navigate debates, and skillfully navigate them in particularly when we're feeling triggered or when another person is feeling triggered. We're not backing away from saying our truth, and yet we're still very much able to set our boundaries, and we're still very much able to reflect and take feedback. So you'll recall that I spoke about it being more like a dance. And when I think about really skillful martial artists, I think to Bruce Lee, and there is this water element that he says, be like water. And it's very much about being able to be soft to it, but also not losing the fieriness to it as well. So it actually encompasses a lot of the, and I just speak to two elements there, but it encompasses actually all of the different elements of the metal and the wood too. And so what we're going to start with here is going through the stages of, let's say, the steps of what stage 3 looks like. Okay, the first part is that we perceive that we're getting attacked. Okay, so we have this perception that we're perhaps feeling unsafe, or we're feeling triggered, we're feeling worked, and we don't know where it's coming from or whatever it may be. We just know how we're feeling, and we're feeling uncomfortable. Okay. Now, that attack is a perception of ours, right? The other person might not have an intention of delivering an attack. That person might very well have an intention of delivering an attack. And it depends a lot on whether it's a highly unskilled delivery. Like, you could get a really highly unskilled punch that's just like a really full-blown rant. Or it could be more skillful. Someone could be more skillful with their words. You could, for instance, come into an argument with someone who's very well versed in emotional literacy, like a psychotherapist, or someone who like a psychiatrist, and you could note almost like a mental debate. Like you could just kind of like let's say I'm gonna give an example of this because it would be easier to understand what I'm talking to in terms of skilled and unskilled delivery. Because part of this is the second. It also includes the second stage, which is the discernment of what's coming towards you. Is it mine? Is it yours? Subsequent to perceiving that an attack is coming through. I'll use an example recently of me and my wife, Araya, and I created a series of presentations. And it was just in Keynote. It was like a deck for some information that I was trying to present out there. And the first thing that so I said, I'd like some feedback from you. Please comment. And the first thing that she commented on were the colors, that it wasn't really readable. And for me, what I perceived in feeling was an attack. Was like, of all of the hard work and heart and soul that I poured into this, the only thing you're commenting on is the colors. And so the thing for me was, here I am feeling attacked, right? And there was absolutely no intention from her of attacking me for this. In fact, if anything, she had debated for some time about whether she wanted to even share this feedback, because she had a feeling, a sense that I would get triggered by this, right? By commenting on colors. But yet she knew how important it would be for this document to be really legible and beautiful, right? And so she delivered that feedback very neutrally, almost to a numb state. Like, there was no emotional bomb that came with that delivery whatsoever. However, I still felt really attacked. Now, the weaving, the sparring that then begins, right, is for me then to say, okay, acknowledge, yeah, I'm feeling triggered right now. I'm feeling attacked. And my truth is that I've put so much heart and soul into this piece of work, and you're not commenting on any of the content, and it's just colors, which is not my thing. After sharing my truth, then I can go into feeling out how I'm reminded of my childhood. And all of these triggers, my sense is that all of these different types of triggers that come up, maybe not all, a lot of them, come from childhood woundings. And so for me, then when I allowed myself to go more deeply into that trigger, I was reminded of my mother, who would always, let's say, shame me for maybe how I was writing, like that my handwriting wasn't legible, or perhaps the color of my hair, or what I was wearing, or different elements of judgment towards how I would, let's say, express myself. And so it takes courage to share that, right? To say, well, there's probably something here that's mine. It also takes courage from Araya to stand her ground, and also to say, no, I really do think that there's something here for you to look at. Okay. And so in sharing that, there starts to become some kind of softness. And it's also then for me to say, but there's something that's probably reflecting here for you. And so then for her, it was a deep dive into that came out that was about a memory of her childhood where she was sitting with her sister, her younger sister, and they were both drawing. And she poured her heart and soul as a child into this drawing that she thought was really beautiful, and her parents ignored it and focused instead on her sister's work. And so, as gutted and as painful as she felt, it had also created some cast as to needing to comment on colors first, or potentially a layout, or the creativeness of a piece of presentation. And so here are two people that are very conscious about triggers and not non-triggers, about working an aspect deliberately, skillfully, trying as hard as they can to remain in touch with their feelings, not fusing with our child that's shown up too much, but staying in touch with him so that we can share our truth. And if there's numbness there, that we're able to call that piece out, and that there's a reflection. So in this interaction, what is seemingly a conflict, right? One could say conflict, or a debate, or a spar. There is then an opportunity to be able to dive deeper in our relationships if we go back to the core. So there was a process there of allowing the emotion to arise, speaking to the truth, accepting and welcoming feedback, figuring out what's mine, what's hers, and coming to a point of that feeling reminds me of something. Every trigger that comes up for any of us will remind us of something deeper. So then the memory can come to the surface again. And when it comes to the surface, then we can bring healing. And so for me, when that came to the surface, the really important part for me was, yes, to speak my truth, but not to be dependent on her or anybody else to do that piece of healing for me. That was purely up to myself to love myself more. For me to love and embrace my tantrum wounded child, that was my mother, and her interaction with me as a child, and the judgment that came across. And for me to love that. Not for Araya to love that, just me. And so for her, the same thing too, as she's as the image of her childhood, and her sitting at the family dinner table, doing her drawing, and her parents aren't there to accept and embrace this, that she's able to do that for herself. Not for me to do that for her to do that for herself. And so that way, both our inner children have shown up, and we're tantruming. One has shown up in a more open and expressive way. The other has shown up in more of a numb and cold way, in the questioning of, should I be speaking my truth about the fact that I don't like the colors here, right? They're showing up in different ways. But we're both, let's say, doing the work of loving ourselves and those moments to which we were painfully abandoned, painfully unseen, painfully unheard, and almost painfully unloved. And none of those moments, I would say, were intentional, hurtful moments from any of the parents, especially in Araya's case, just commenting on the beauty of the other child's art whilst neglecting Araya's work. In mine, probably a little bit more conscious, but still very unconscious about the projected emotions, right? Now, the shadowy part of being more skillful and more, let's say, smart about our emotions and how we're working them, as we both are, very, very emotionally literate and very emotionally intimate, is we can get too smart for ourselves. And we can stay in the realm of, like, we're doing this spa, this dance, right? And we're just so aware of the dance that it can almost be like playing out a persona, another persona, a different persona, right? And this is the struggle that, let's say, some therapists and more healers and spiritual teachers, etc., face, is that they do have more awareness into what's showing up, and the tendency can be easily to bypass, right, rather than to own. And so that's what I would call these days relational artistry, an ability to work with things that show up as seemingly not mundane, but small, like such a small issue of a comment on colors, right, can lead to such a depth of work. And this is really a providing of this safe space, a sanctuary to which we're able to dive deeper and to dive more deeply into the inner work. Now, not everyone has that opportunity to be in relationships where we're able to skillfully navigate that. Most emotionally weaponized types of conflict, the emotions and the feedback is delivered very unskillfully. It's wild. In martial arts, it'd be like wild swings, pushing and shoving. It would be like grabbing just everywhere, pulling hair, slapping on face, just a general street fight. And when that happens, there's just not, it's like, it's difficult to apply empathy, to apply heart to that matter. It's easier when you're more skillful to apply heart to this. And so in doing this work, in learning what we're learning about through the last several sessions, can lead us to being able to hold and provide a safer space that allows for a greater level of transformation. So when we're delivering feedback, when we're getting feedback and we're getting triggered and we're getting attacked, or we're delivering attacks and we're triggering other people, we have more relational artistry to navigate the deeper level of work, which is the bringing back of the memory of the trauma or the moment to which we felt unseen, unheard, unsafe, unwanted, defective. Comments on any of that?
So I am fully on board with everything that you've shared around, using everything as a mirror from that point of view. I suppose the question is like, you even mentioned that the parents might have unwittingly, unknowingly hurt their children in the process. Like, is this just the necessary like hero's journey of life that we are going to be, potentially consciously or unconsciously hurt throughout our childhoods, and then we spend the rest of our life awakening to these traumas that are holding us back from, um, divine presence?
Yeah, it's it's almost like a deep philosophical question that I I want to answer philosophically, but I contemplated this for myself too. It's like if a child was birthed to, let's say, a Buddha and Kuan Yin, right? Incredibly enlightened beings. Would that child experience trauma in relation to their upbringing? My suspicion is yes, it possibly could, because it just depends on the child's perspective, the spirit of the child, the soul's perspective on how they were brought up. So, like, for what could be seen as, like, let's say Buddha and Kuan Yin, they're out in the world and they have to get a babysitter to look after their child, and that child could be really hurt and feel very abandoned by their parents, just for leaving them to the care of a babysitter in that moment. And was that the fault? Was that anything that Buddha and Kuan Yin could possibly do? No. And I think that is that's the thing about no matter how conscious and aware the parents might be, it's still up to the child as to what type of perspective they take on it. Sure, they would be able to assist the child have a greater capacity to assist them, because they would have maybe created a safer space to share the wound, so that they may come home and recognize the child's hurting. Why are you hurting my child? And then to be able to speak to that, to say, I can feel your hurt. Yeah, and then feel some remorse, even if like, to feel a child's hurt, no matter whether you had a control or a say in it or not, leads to the same feeling of hurt and the same feeling of remorse that can then be spoken to and loved. So it's an acknowledgement by all parties that I can feel your hurt and your pain. And even if I did not inflict that through my deliberate or non-deliberate action, I'm not going to excuse myself and say, Mummy and Daddy had to go to work, so, that's just the way it is. It's feeling. And it's through that feeling that the child feels heard, and the feeling of pain. And it's that resonance of pain that helps the child bring the pain back into the heart. So, like, if the parents, Buddha and Kuan Yin, take that pain into their heart, they are showcasing for the child how to deal with pain in the future and in that moment. So the healing can be done then rather than 20 years down the track. So I sense that there is a difference. It's not that the pain's not felt, or there is a greater capacity simply that is addressed. That's if the child shares that, right? It might not. We don't know. So, I think the best thing we can do as parents, or one thing is, whenever we're feeling our child hurting, we can write it down in a book, right? Or we can take a mental note of it, of what happened. And what that helps us kind of encourage is if our child wants to dive into this piece of work later on for themselves, that they have a whole reference that they're able to tap into. That might not be the complete list, right? But that's a significantly better start than most children, where you sort of say, or adults where they're like, I don't really remember my childhood. So it's like, well, where do I start? And imagine if you started from a place of all of trauma. And I know some people are going to say, isn't that too much focus on trauma? Should we not be thinking about other things, or like just simply experiencing life? Yeah, it's an individual choice of each parent as to what they choose to focus their energy on. Like, we don't keep a book for Aisha because we want to just tackle each moment as it comes. So if she falls and hits her head on the ground and she starts crying, we're just there with her, right? Like, I don't write it in a book, but I make a note of it, and I make sure we feel it deeply and figure out what action can I take here that's going to make this space safer. And action is that key.
That's gold, Chris. Thank you. The remembrance of the healing being done in the moment is really, really poignant for me right now. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Okay, so let's dive in deeper to this sparring, emotional sparring. And I'm going to describe it in terms of, again, martial arts again. What does a block look like? So you're feeling attacked, and when we're attacked, we will block. We want to block. That's often our go-to. Let's say, for unskilled practitioner, an unskilled practitioner would do like a hard block, and often they look like beginners in karate, where it's like hard, on, off, on, off, on, off. There's not much in between, right? Knee up, knee down. It's one or the other. Okay, a punch comes in and you block, and it's just here. Your arms are hard, everything's solid, and you're actually slightly numb. And it has a lot of metal and earth elements. Now, in a soft block, not soft block, but in a skilled block, there's a lot of feeling there. There's a lot of space in between the full block and the off block. And this would be more like, let's say, some skilled Kung Fu, Wing Chun, or maybe Jutkindo, like the Bruce Lee style, where you can almost feel like it's a dance, and you might be there with your partner and throwing a block, and there's motion that comes that is a very watery motion. There is no one set position. There's no ending position, and there's no starting position. It's all through feel. And there's water there as well, but there's some container for the water too. There's like earth elements and wood elements, because you're kind of like bamboo and you're flowing with it. And you're sensing the degree of energy or heat that's kind of coming towards you as to how you're moving, how the rest of your body moves, and how you are tackling what was just simply a punch. If you're too soft and too watery, it can still hit you. So there must be in-betweens of everything. There must still be some rigidity and structure to the block, but yet there's not so much that there's no feeling within it. So let's do some practices. Now, these practices can be done also with partners, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send out a lot of emotional bombs, a lot of attacks, and people can role play this in Gestalt, however you pronounce that, with two people sitting opposite each other, and one can be delivering a whole barrage of attacks whilst pretending or acting as though they were their lover, their mother, their father, their teacher, their friends, whoever it might be that they've felt that they're, let's say, struggling with on perhaps a daily basis, perhaps a less regular basis, in every time that they talk to this person, feeling triggered by them, however it may be. And so what I'm going to try to do is to replicate these people in this attack. Now, the exercise is about, it's kind of like what I call shadow boxing. It's like being Casper the Ghost, and that's probably quite an old movie now, but it's like being in the ring with a person in front of you who's kind of like feels like your opponent, but probably not your opponent. They feel like that in that moment. They might be your competitor, and you're finding it difficult to have a dance with them, right? You're finding it difficult because this person really triggers you and wants to punch the living daylights out of you, and you just want to punch the living daylights out of them, potentially. And you're in the ring. Now, why do I say turning into Casper the Ghost when it comes to blocking? Is because what we can do with emotions, there is a skill set that is in every single human that is like our sight, right? We're able to see and position an object or ourselves in relation to the object, close or far away, to be able to see what it is. Same thing with emotions. We have this capacity within our body to place the emotion at different levels of intensity towards us. And the complete shadow, like just, I'm not even in the ring anymore, would be complete numbness in that situation. Or let's say I'm just getting out of the ring, you're going off and I'm leaving the room. I'm not even engaging in this fight. If, however, we do that, we don't have an opportunity to address the trigger or the wounding there. And that may be necessary in some instances, right? That the other person has no capacity, or we sense they have no capacity to be able to hold a skillful match, spar. And in that case, it's actually causing us more danger to be in the ring than it's not causing us danger to be in the ring. Like for a skilled martial arts fighter to be in the ring with someone with deadly weapons is, or to even train with someone who's more unskilled, is actually dangerous to them because they're so random, it's like the intensity just comes very, very bizarrely. It's just a completely different thing. So what we want to achieve here is kind of like we turn ourselves into like a sieve, or like a net, but with very big holes. So we can kind of still run water through the sieve, water with all this gunk, and nothing much catches. yet we can still feel what's coming towards us. Okay? But we're not, let's say, significantly wounded by the experience. Now, most of us will have a tendency to either want to run, escape, turn this video off, to not want to confront anger, especially as it's being directed with shame, as it's being directed with fear, as it's being directed with disgust. And I would just encourage you to stay with it, to feel it, but not feel it deeply, and to practice discernment. At first you can say, this stuff is not mine. None at all. This isn't me. Okay. Then what I want you to work it into is a stop. No. So the attack is coming, and what you're doing is you're sensing, is this mine? Is this not? I'm being a sieve here, and so I'm just gonna push, let not much of this come through to me. And we're gonna tap down low and say, stop. Not stop, not running away, but no, you're not allowed to do this to me, with some hand action and some gesture. Okay? Okay. Let's break this down though and do the first part first, which is the block, rather than the block into the punch, which is the next part. Okay, I'm going to send out some bombs with emotion, with emotional fear. Let's do fear first. If you keep going out and interacting with people in the supermarket, in the streets, you're going to get COVID and you're going to die. Wear your masks. Stop kissing in public. Wear a seatbelt or you're going to die. Pay your taxes or I'm going to put you in jail. You better complete your tax returns or the government's going to come after you. Follow company policies or we're going to fire you. For me, I find it very difficult even to deliver. It's like I really have to tap down deep to deliver fear projecting, non-heart-centered, feedback. So, forgive me if it doesn't feel very real. It might feel more real when you're actually in the scenario. But so these are exercises that you can practice with other people. So like, let's say you want to address something that has been bugging you for a while with your dad, or with your mum, or with your partner, and you're just worried about how it's going to be delivered. You can practice, have someone become that person for a while, and practice this. And you can practice being that sieve, right? Okay, I've got this boss who's a serious narcissist, and every time I'm in their company, I just get really triggered, and it's like, "Argh." We can take that moment, and I'm gonna find someone who's skilled at doing these practices, and you're now gonna be my boss. And you shame me, project fear at me, do all these other things that he would or she would normally do. And I'm going to practice the block. And then through this process, the skillful part is, what does this remind me about my childhood? What does this remind me about my father interacting with me? Does this remind me of my mother interacting with me? We can start to do these practices with ourselves. And really, that's the when that core wound is addressed and healed, we actually are no longer triggered by these people in our lives. We sometimes find that they actually change their behaviors towards us. Okay, now let's practice shame. And this could often come in the form of like a text message towards us, right? It's not even by words. So we're reading a message, and there's just a lot of shame coming through. We're being shamed, and we're feeling like I'm defective, right? Whereas fear is like, I'm feeling unsafe, and someone's trying to make us feel really unsafe. Okay. This one, let's practice bringing that fire out into a stop. So we're feeling shamed by an individual. We're blocking, and we're saying, no, stop shaming me, no more. I can't take this. You're hurting me. Stop it. Okay. You are a problem child. Why can't you get better grades? You are so stupid. Your singing horrifies me. Never do that in public. You are such an irresponsible parent. You will never be of any success or any worth in this life because you are so lazy. Pick up your bum and start to do something. You're horrible. You're awful. You're defective. You missed all of your sales targets this month. Pick up your game. Shame on you. Shame. Do you even care about what's happening? How can I ever trust you again? Shame on you. Now, shame is used often in very judgmental terms. And it causes us to have this kind of meek, contracting energy that makes us not want to stand up for ourselves and to say stop. So this is a very good one to practice with other people, to remember to tap into that. And a good example, if we're struggling to form words to say stop or no, is to do the dragon's breath. So as I'm saying this, you're defective, you're a problem child, is just to continue this exercise or start the exercise before the shame comes in. And you're pushing into your belly. And as the shame comes in, just stop it. No, stop. Without even listening to the words so much, right? We're just practicing having that feeling in our body of no, stop. And then the words come in, right? And we sort of initially can be very numb to the words, but we sort of soften to them just a tad and let some of the words in. And we can work that energy. And what happens mechanically is the fire starts to burn away the shame. That watering down energy of the shame or the fear or the disgust starts to become burnt away by this expression of saying, stop it, I've had enough, you're hurting me. Which also burns away the inner critic. Because those voices that were going blah, 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 they don't have to be from another person. They can be from ourselves very often. We ourselves are attacking us, saying, oh, you did this again. Shame on you for making this mistake again. And it's just this inner voice that's going blah, 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 blah. We can do the same exercise for that. No, stop. We know when that voice has shown up because it will always be discouraging of us. It will always be shaming us. It will always be trying to make us feel scared. It will always be being disgusted by us, feeling unwanted. Guidance from the heart never sounds like that. Never ever. Right? So we start to be able to learn to discern the shame that's coming in and to be able to work with it. Any questions so far?
Yes, I'm working with a man right now, and he doesn't have anger. He doesn't have a no. And so I was expressing to him about the purpose of having a sword and anger on tap, so to speak, so he can say no and stop.
Yeah.
But what's happening is this weekend he started shaming me. He shamed me for expressing that he needs to have fire on tap. And he wants to do all the other elements of TCM. So he wants to be in the water realm and flow and think things out. But he doesn't, and I keep telling him, look, it's the fire. You gotta grow some energy. And he shamed me back. So what do you recommend to a man who says it can't just be that easy just to be in fiery? Does the fire just burn through all the other 4 elements?
I would say that just like a lot of people, we have had really painful experiences from other people getting angry with us, getting fiery with us. And so because of those experiences, we have a tendency to just not want anger in our life at all. I'd say that maybe one of the things that we can work on first is to look at how traumatic experiences have happened for us in the face of anger. So, because we have to develop a new relationship with it, with all of our emotions. And our relationship with anger, in this case of what you're sharing right now, is that we don't like it at any cost. And then so the question is, why do we not like it? What's so terrible about it? There's something that's happened probably in the past, probably in childhood, about how anger was used very painfully towards him. It could have been being bullied. It could have been in aggression. It could have been physical violence. It could have, who knows?
Yeah, he shared that with me today. He was bullied really bad.
Yep.
Like hit in the solar plexus when he was like 14 a lot.
And
so I think aggression and anger in him was, so he just shoved it all in. Yep. So it's hard for him to express it.
That's right. And 14 would not be the first time that you would be bullied. Most often, right. It's a lot younger than that. Perhaps it was being bullied by the parents. Perhaps it was being bullied by
the nuns. No, the nuns.
Nuns. Okay.
Catholic or Christian nuns bullied him and shamed him.
Yep. And tell you that you're not allowed to get angry, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you do, we're going to beat you up. So, or lock you up, or, punish you in some way that's going to be even less pleasant than you expressing your anger. So, the key is to feel that pain again. And unfortunately, there's probably a lot of pain there that people say, why do I need to relive the past? Why do I need to relive this pain?
But he doesn't want to go to the fire realm with me, like wrestle with me and like do the tongue, the breathing. He wants to stay in the watery yin realms, the softer realms, and
it's safe because that's safe for him. Yeah, so it's where his comfort zone is. It's that part is the part that is more explored. He knows what he's dipping his toes into, and there's not as much pain in that realm. But when he dives into the realm of fire and anger, there's a lot of pain there. It's bubbling away at the surface, and we don't want to look there. We will try everything to not look there. But the way the universe works, from my perspective, is we cannot avoid any of these lessons. These lessons just continue to keep coming back to us in different forms, telling us you need to stand up for yourself. You need to have boundaries. If he had boundaries as a child, as 14-year-old, he probably would not have been bullied. So it was probably a lot earlier that his anger and his ability to stand up for himself, to be empowered in setting boundaries, was snuffed out of him at a significantly earlier age. And bullies detect this. Bullies prey on the weak, the meek. Why were they weak and meek to begin with? Because their strength, their fieriness, their fierceness was snuffed out of them at a significantly earlier age. Right? And so to tap into that means he has to begin to acknowledge that pain that lives there, and then to bring it back to the heart. Because you could say, oh, look, I've experienced this wound. I'm always reminded of bullies every day. Every single day I'm being triggered by a different bully, whether they're directly bullying me, or they're bullying the world, or they're bullying whoever it is, a minority group, or blah, 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 bullying animals. Right? They're being triggered daily, most likely, but they don't recognize that they can come to heal it, not heal the outside world, heal themselves. Not focusing all of this healing energy to healing something besides themselves. That's just running away from the pain. So much activism is kind of like corrupted at the core. What do I mean by that is we're trying to heal others rather than healing ourselves. And so, if wrestling and all of this is too much, or a men's circle is too much, as it is an edge for a lot of people, it is to reflect on the pain, at least, or the resistance to being able to feel into the pain of the bully who bullied me as a child, and then to go further. Right? And it's that resistance that we then have to sit with. So, like, you could help them just sit with the resistance, right? Just, okay, I get you don't want to go any deeper in this. Instead of perhaps going into mentalizing and explaining why anger is so important. Because the mental construct, the logical side, is putting up all types of walls to not go back into the pain. Everything. I'm too spiritual for this. I don't like revisiting the past because I'm focused on creating new timelines. I'm focused on creating new, so why bother with the past? No, going into pain is useless. It's not worth reliving not worth reliving. All these excuses we give us, and we can often find ourselves very easily wrapped into that debate and very easily wrapped into that argument. But it was never about that in the first place. It's how ready are we, how courageous are we, and how ready are we to face the pain of our past. That's the core of the healing. Facing it and then bringing it back to the heart. But if we're not ready to face it yet, we have a wall, we have resistance to it. We're trying to argue against it. We're trying to fight it. Where resistance is about us fighting something that wants to come to the surface. And we might call it stubbornness, we might call it fighting ourselves, or this internal conflict, right? The piece that is missing here is the willingness to confront and face the heat, right? And so that's the piece that I would sit with, is just go, it's okay to have all of this resistance to it. It's very common, but sit with the resistance and go, what makes you so scared of going into that? Because there will be other things before the fire. You'd be scared, you're fearful of reliving the pain, probably feeling ashamed or feeling guilty of not doing it earlier, You know, there's many things. So there's the resistance brings up a lot.
Right. And if he can't get angry, then his partner, women, cannot trust him. In this case. Like,
Well, no one can.
Yeah, nobody can.
Nobody can.
His partner.
Yeah, you're a ticking time bomb waiting to blow up.
Yeah.
If you have,
or it's just shoved down so far it never comes up.
Still a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
It you know, and so, you know, like when you have a ticking time bomb underneath you and you start drinking, what happens? Like, it comes out. So you're like, at all costs, I'm not going to drink anything. At all costs, I'm not going to, because I don't want to address that. I don't want to bring it to the surface. Right?
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I'm getting more conscious of the time, so it's 1:55 here. Any last questions before we wrap up? Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Chris. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Cheers, Don. Go Riot.